Here we'll be walking through the basic cup or jar test, sometimes also known as a tailgate test, where we're essentially taking the flock log and silt stop products and matching them to a site's soil or water. So what we need to perform one of these tests is a sample of the turbid water. If you do not have the turbid water and we're working with a soil, you can also make a soil slurry by adding water to the soil from the site. Once we have our turbid water, we're going to need clear plastic cups, the flock logs, or the silt stop powder. We'll then split the water sample between 4 to 6 clear plastic cups. Usually we'll need just a couple ounces or 1 to 200 milliliters of water. Once we've put that into our labeled plastic cups, we'll take a very small piece of the flock log or a pinch of the silt stop. We'll then put that into the plastic cup and swirl it. We use a swirling motion to mimic water moving over and around the log. What we also do when we're doing this cup test is we measure the amount of time it takes for the reaction to take place. So that reaction usually happens somewhere in 30 to 60 seconds. Really the average is 15 to 60 seconds, but we usually see about 30 to 45 seconds to see reaction. So we'll have a timer, and every 15 or 20 seconds or so, we'll stop, take a look at the example or at the sample, observe whether we see flock formation, and if it's settling. If the water's still kind of cloudy, we'll go another 15, 30 seconds and continue swirling, and just make sure we're keeping track of the time, because that gives us an idea of how long it's going to take for that reaction to happen and to fully form those flocks in the field so that it can settle. Once we get to a minute, if you don't see flock forming and the water clearing, then that particular flock log or silt stop powder is probably not the most effective one. So we'll continue to do that with multiple of the flock log and silt stop powders. We really have about 4 flock logs that are commonly used, and so it's very likely that one of those 4 flock logs will be effective. And it's the same thing with our silt stop powders for water treatment. We have multiple silt stop powders, but typically about 3 of them are effective most of the time for water clarification. So we'll usually start with our 706B, 703D number 3 flock logs, or a combination of those two. For our silt stop powders, we'll usually start with our 710 or our 712, and then we'll test the other ones from there if those aren't as effective. So the things that we're looking for when we're doing this test, besides of course which one makes the clearest water and which ones react the fastest, other things we can keep an eye on are how large the flock is that we formed. So say, for example, we treat the water and all 3 flock logs or silt stop powders are effective at clearing the water, and it all happens in 30 seconds or less. So what you would do in that case is maybe one of those forms larger, heavier particles that can settle faster. Those are typically what you would choose over one that maybe makes a lighter, fluffier flock, just because they'll be easier to capture and faster to settle. So you can see in this video that I'm doing here, the first one was effective. It took a little bit longer, that 703D cup. That took probably about 40 to 45 seconds, and it is a little bit cloudier. The second cup that we just did, labeled that 706B, that reaction was faster. You can see there's larger flocks that are pulled together there at the bottom of that cup. And so it happened faster and gave us better clarity. So now what we're moving on to in this is that final 730B flock log. So again, we're swirling the cup, stopping every 20 seconds or so to see. You can see that all 3 of these flock logs for this particular water sample were effective. And that's not always going to be the case. Sometimes you'll have situations where not many of them are effective, and sometimes we have to combine 2 different flock logs to have the most effective results. But in this particular case, this soil sample wasn't too difficult, and we were able to treat those effectively with all 3 of these flock logs that we tried. Now, what we can do in this case, again, we can still, even though they all work, we're going to go ahead and pick the one with most clarity. And so that's the general idea behind a tailgate test or a cup test. You can see here that when we did that test, we didn't do any other measurements. We didn't look at turbidity or pH or any water quality parameters. When we do the test in our lab at our facility in Georgia, we'll test the pre and post treatment turbidity, and then we'll also check the pH and the hardness and a few other water quality parameters. But you can really do this test directly on a tailgate or on site and determine which flocculant is going to be the most effective. And so that's the general idea behind this. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. If you are, doing one of these tests and want to FaceTime or go over anything, I'm happy to jump on a Zoom or a FaceTime, and we can kind of do these in real time, semi in person. So thank you again, and I will also send additional written instructions for this. And again, reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.